All right, guys, this is it. It's week 17. You need that upside. Who's going to carry you to the ship? Well, it's going to be somebody that has a huge game. We know that. They're what we call booms. We've been giving you our boom picks every week throughout the season. Let's do it one more time. Before we give you our picks, let me remind you that this is still a good time to try out Underdog Fantasy if you haven't already. If you sign up and use promo code ENDGAME, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100, and you get this new customer special for Week 17. It's Dak Prescott just getting 1 yard. He gets a yard, you get a win. Just take that pick. It's higher than 0.5 total yards, and you get this as soon as you sign up as a new customer. And you can combine it with any other pick you like, and we're about to give you one of our favorites. But let's get to it. Chris, who's your first boom for championship week?
Yeah, if you somehow made it to championship week with Austin Ekeler, you've got to start Austin Ekeler this week. I know you don't want to start Austin Ekeler, but there's reasons to be encouraged. I mean, he didn't have a horrible game last week. But what I really like is new head coach Giff Smith. Is it Jiff? I don't know. I don't care. What I like to see is he made Austin Ekeler the guy again. 15 carries last week, by far dominated this backfield, had 4 targets. That's the kind of usage we wanted to see from Austin Ekeler that we hadn't been seeing recently with Brandon Staley. And even better, he gets the Denver Broncos again this week. You remember last time they played the Broncos? 21 fantasy points. That was his last big game he's had this season. And oh, by the way, that was the game Justin Herbert got hurt and Easton Stick came in, and that's when he kind of saved his day and he scored that touchdown. If Austin Ekeler is going to get 15 plus carries, 4 plus targets in this game against the Broncos, he's going to have a big game. And look, Easton Stick and this Chargers offense at least looked good enough last week. He got vultured at the goal line by Easton Stick. He easily could have scored last week. I think he can find the end zone again this week, have another big game. Chargers actually looked like a serviceable offense last week. The Broncos are still terrible against the run. Austin Ekeler is primed for another big game this week. If somehow you made a tier championship with Austin Ekeler, keep the faith with him. He's going to come through in week 17 and save your season.
And now I have to talk about the guy we thought might be the number one fantasy running back of the season. But you still have to decide, am I going to trust Bijan Robinson for Week 17 championship week? I am. And I've been trusting him down the stretch lately anyways, despite Arthur Smith's best intentions to foil our fantasy plans for a trophy. Here's the thing. Bijan this last week, you felt good because of the matchup against Indy, a bad run defense. He came through, for the most part, had a nice week, but a lot of it wasn't even on the ground. Because if you look at just the rushing production here, you say, well, Tyler Algier basically had the same as far as yardage, and he got a touchdown. But what Bijan did, which is why we loved him so much, especially in fantasy, is that he's a great receiver. And I don't mean for a running back. He's just a really good receiver. He came away with 7 catches for 50 yards in Week 16. I bet you he can surpass that. In fact, I'm almost sure he will in Week 17 because he gets the Bears. Here's one thing that they somehow have, oddly enough, just reigned supreme in this year. It's giving up receiving yards to running backs. They don't just lead the way here, they lap the field somehow. They've allowed 887 receiving yards to running backs. No other defense has even gotten to 700, and they allow a full yard per target more than the next team. Not only do the Bears do this consistently, other teams know this and they exploit it. We saw it last week with Arizona. Not just James Conner, but Amari Demercado wound up with a big receiving day against the Bears. Bijan Robinson doesn't have to run for a lot of yards. He really doesn't even have to get double-digit carries to have a huge fantasy game this week. So yeah, I'm trusting the talent here. I'm trusting the matchup. If I have Bijan with it all on the line, I have to keep him in my lineup. All right, who else do you feel has to be starting for you to win?
Chris Olave has to be starting for you to win. We get so many Chris Olave questions. It's like people doubt Chris Olave. Like, is he really this good? I don't understand it. He's been mostly great this year. Yeah, there was that little rough patch early in the year, but everybody goes through that. Look at the last 5 games. He's had at least 94 receiving yards in 4 of those games, and he's gone over 100 yards in 3 of them. He's also scored in 3 of those games. He's been nothing but fantastic, and he's even had some tough matchups in there, like the Panthers, teams like that don't give up a ton of wide receivers. Even last week, the Rams. Now he gets a fantastic matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. Calvin Ridley just had a big game against Tampa Bay. There's no reason to think Chris Olave isn't going to go off again. And oh, look at this. Derek Carr is finally playing kind of decent right now that the season's over. I guess trying to save his job for next year. I don't know. But all signs point to Chris Olave having another huge game this week. You have to start this guy. Stop questioning whether he should be in your lineup or not. Just put him in there and take the fantasy points. And also, I recommend you take his line on underdog as well. We talked about it, his early line right now, 68.5 yards. I'm easily smashing the higher on that. I just said he's gone over 94 yards in 4 of the last 5 games. He should easily do that against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You take that line, you pair it with the Dak Prescott new customer special line. Easy way to win your first pick on underdog. Don't forget, use promo code ENDGAME when you sign up. Get that 100% deposit match, dollar for dollar, up to $100. Take the Olave pick, pair it with Dak Prescott. Easy win right there.
You know what other receiver has been mostly great this season? It's Nico Collins in Houston. The only time he didn't put up huge numbers for you was a couple of week period earlier on when Tank Dell suddenly emerged and became the guy. And then there was a couple of weeks where, well, he left in the beginning of the game because he got hurt. And then last week, because Case Keenum was the quarterback. And even last week, he managed to score and come through somewhat for fantasy. Hate to tell you, Tank Dell is gone, and they returned to home. So you got C.J. Stroud throwing to Nico Collins in Houston against Tennessee's defense. Like Nico Collins, when he has been healthy this season, if you take away that game where he basically didn't even play, he's averaging 5.3 receptions and 90 yards per game. That's his average. So now we take a smash spot here where he should be even closer to 100% health with his quarterback back in a great matchup here. I mean, it's easy to see how he could have a boom game. This is a guy you have to keep in your lineup. You look at what he's done lately the last couple of weeks, you might be a little bit nervous. There's no reason to be. Think back to early season Nico and how he was a dominant fantasy receiver. That's what we're going to see this week. All right, who else do you think is going to boom week 17?
Yeah, I want to talk about another receiver kind of like Chris Olave, in the sense a guy that people are always asking us questions about, and we just say start him, and that is Devonta Smith. Why is Devonta Smith just not in your lineup like every week? Like, why are you questioning this? I mean, I get it if you have, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, okay. But outside of that, this guy has been great. The last month and a half, he's been fantastic. One of the best wide receivers in fantasy. Just had another nice game on Christmas Day against the Giants. Had that long touchdown, that 30-yard touchdown. Caught a few more passes. He does this every single week, and it's like every week people are like, I don't know, should I start this guy? I don't know. Do you like fantasy points? Start Devonta Smith. And even if you are worried, even if you do have these questions, you shouldn't have any questions this week because they're at home against the Arizona Cardinals. One of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. They're not Commanders level bad, but they're pretty close. There is no reason to think this Eagles offense, which looked much better against the Giants, won't look even better against the Cardinals. Devonta Smith is a great player. He's involved in the offense. He has tremendous weekly upside anyways in normal situations, but this week against the Cardinals, he has a chance to win weeks this week. Please get Devonta Smith in your lineup if you have him.
Like you said, it's such a great matchup there for the Eagles. I'm going to stick with this offense and go with a guy who has been a little bit easier to question, DeAndre Swift. He had gone 4 straight games without scoring, and that huge ceiling we saw early in the season has not been there. It kind of returned week 16. He finally found the end zone. Jalen Hurts was nice enough to let him score once, although Hurts did also score again. But Swift finally did get a touchdown. Went for 92 yards on the ground, and now he gets the Cardinals. Now you say that they haven't been Commanders level bad. Overall, this is true. But when you talk specifically just to running backs, they've been worse. In fact, you now have your official worst defense against running backs for the entire season. It's Arizona. And the last 4 weeks, they've been especially bad. They're getting worse and worse. Just the last 4 weeks, they've allowed 6 yards per carry to running backs. That's astonishingly bad. And you got a guy like Swift who can rip off huge plays and chunks of yardage. This is a game you got to feel like he's going to, again, get a lot of carries, chance for another touchdown. Swift is a guy that, Look, you can question what his ceiling is on a weekly basis. This week, there is no question. I think you have Swift. You need to take a chance and start him. All right, let's finish strong here. One more boom pick for the 2023 season.
Yeah, last week I said Breece Hall would boom. Now, I'll be honest, I was nervous putting Breece Hall on the booms video because he was pretty much terrible prior to that. But I said, look, it's the Commanders. I'm going to trust the numbers and say he could boom. And I think he definitely boomed last week. Well, I'm going to do the same thing this week with Travis Etienne. I know, he's been awful. If you have Travis Etienne, you may not be playing this week. But if somehow you are, I think you got to get him in your lineup again. Sometimes you just got to trust the situation and the numbers, kind of like Breece Hall last week. Bad players can suddenly have huge games when the situation is right, and I think the situation is right for Travis Etienne this week. It's not like Travis Etienne himself has gotten bad. He still has been good. The offense has just gotten bad, but I think this is a week where they say, look, we've got to win a game. We're playing the Panthers at home. Let's just go out there and grind out an ugly win. We got a banged up quarterback who may not play. If it's not him, it's a backup quarterback. I think this week they just lean on Travis Etienne. Look, last week, Aaron Jones, over 130 total yards against the Panthers. A.J. Dillon with a broken thumb still somehow scored a touchdown. Like, this defense is so bad that Travis Etienne can still have a great game this week, and I think he will. Because I think the Jaguars are just going to do whatever they have to do this week to win and keep their playoff hopes alive. And if that means grinding it out with the running game, that's what they'll reluctantly do. I think that's their best course of action this week. Travis Etienne is still a fantastic player. He can still rip off long runs. He catches passes. I think he bounces back in a big way. And if somehow you're still alive with him and you keep faith in him and start him this week, I think you're going to be rewarded.
All right, since this is it, our final boom of the season, let's go ahead and go out on a limb here. I'm going to pick a tight end to boom, which we know what the risks are there. But let me give a shout out to former Hurricane and possible league winner, David Njoku. Lost in Amari Cooper's ridiculous game last week. David Njoku was really good again. And now this makes 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games alone. Njoku has also got 22 receptions on 31 targets over the last 3 games. And this just so happens to coincide with Joe Flacco becoming the starting quarterback there. It's not a coincidence. Njoku has been targeted a ton. He's scoring almost every week now. He's going to score again this week. And I know to say call it touchdown is risky. I'll just go out and say it because they're going to face the Jets. And the Jets have allowed more touchdowns to tight ends than every team except for Denver. Even last week, I know they somehow won. They wound up giving up 28 points to the Commanders. I'm pretty sure the way Joe Flacco is rolling, he's going to put up points here. I'm not scared of the Jets defense. If you have Njoku, don't question it. You start him and you take your big week and hopefully you take home a trophy. All right, there you have it. Hopefully these players will help you win. That's what we're here for. Try to get everybody out here a championship. We have winning advice for you. Start sit at every position and more. Just check out our Week 17 playlist.